Welcome, everyone. I just wanted to take this opportunity to welcome you to tonight's webinar. We're so excited to have so many people here this evening. We look forward to a very substantive conversation, information session. Excited about our upcoming CCEC elections. Really wish that all of you who are attending tonight eventually run for a council seat, and are so grateful that all of you are here today. So with that said, I'd like to introduce my colleague, our Senior Director, Eloise Mendez, who will begin to take us through our agenda this evening.
Good evening, everyone. As Jesse said, my name is Eloise Mendez. I'm the Senior Director of Home School Partnerships on behalf of the Office of Family and Community Empowerment, also known as FACE. We'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you joining us today. We're thrilled to share information with you about joining the community and citywide education councils, which really give families a way to shape the future of education in our city. Today's webinar is a chance for us to empower you all to participate in these elections. And we will have question and answer session at the end of today's webinar, and ask that you please use the Q&A feature to submit your questions. The community and citywide educational councils are legally mandated advisory bodies. Each of the city's 32 districts has its own council representing local pre-kindergarten through 8th grade students at New York City public school-run schools. There are 4 citywide councils, one for high schoolers, one for students learning English a new language, or ELS, students with disabilities, and District 75 schools. I'm going to provide you with an overview of the election timeline. Applications to serve on the city's community and citywide education councils opened today and will remain open through February 16th. Between the end of February and the end of April, each district and citywide group will hold a candidate forum where candidates will be able to share their views. Voting for the councils starts on April 25th and concludes on May 13th. Election results will be announced in June, and the council seats will be held for 2 years. Next, we're going to show a video that illustrates what education councils are and why they matter. Sound, please.
Recommending how school buildings should be used, and contributing to the hiring process for superintendents and parent coordinators. CECs also meet with superintendents and principals to evaluate educational programs, discuss what families and students need, and make sure those voices are heard. Plus, they organize public meetings and town halls with the chancellor, giving families a platform to share their ideas and concerns. In addition to the 32 district community councils, there are 4 citywide education councils: the Citywide Council on High Schools, the Citywide Council on Special Education, the Citywide Council for District 75, and the Citywide Council on English Language Learners. Are you interested in making a difference? Join an education council and help shape the future of schools in our city. When families, schools, and communities work together, students do their best, not just in school, but in life.
Thank you so much, Eloise. And what I know that the audio, my apologies, the audio didn't play fully through the previous video. So what we can do is maybe at the end kind of re-show it so that everyone gets a chance to see it. So thank you so much for everyone's patience. So why apply? Community and Citywide Education Councils, better known as CCECs, give parents like you the opportunity to make decisions that impact their children's education. Through our CCECs, parents are elected to represent their communities and collaborate on improving schools. CCECs play an important role in improving school zoning lines, recommending how school buildings should be used, and contributing to the hiring process for superintendents and parent coordinators. And I'd like to take a moment here to also share that I've had the privilege to be at FACE for about 14 years. I've had the privilege to work alongside and with many CCEC members throughout the course of my years here. And I will tell you, yes, this is one slide that describes some of the powers and duties of our citywide and community education councils. But the CCECs do so much more that can be expressed in one slide. They are the voice of families in the district. They fight tirelessly. They work hard on all issues. They make sure that the diversity of a community and its ideas and its worries and its goals and its concerns are represented. And they are tireless advocates, on behalf of families. And I have the utmost respect for every single council member I've had the privilege to serve in my capacity at the department over the last 14 years. So next slide. Representation matters. And one of the reasons that we're having this webinar is we want to encourage participation throughout the entire city. As you can see here, our student population is close to 1 million students. Parents who applied last election cycle was about over 1,000, and the votes were about 19,000. So we really want to really encourage mass participation throughout the entire system, so that it is representative of the population that we are representing, that we are serving. So we are encouraging every school, every single school, every single community to have individuals who are parents who are able to run, and also when the time comes to vote, because representation matters, as we all know, and we want to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to serve on the council. Next slide. So we go to our testimonials, and before we go to our testimonials, I also just want to share the following, is that when I started to serve at the department, I remember the road that led me to the department. It was a road, I was introduced as Deputy Executive Director of Family and Community Engagement. But the greatest title I have in this life is father of 2 sons, parent. And that is the greatest title that I will ever have. And when my oldest son, who is now going to be 26 next month, was diagnosed with autism 24 years ago, I knew very little about the education system. And my wife encouraged both of us to learn as much as we could, because we knew that would give our son, give us an opportunity to support our son and help our son and give him what he needed. And we were at a town hall meeting with the superintendent. And I remember there was a mic there, and my wife pushed me toward the mic. And I said, "What would you like me to say?" And she said, "I want you to talk." And I said, "About what?" Because I wasn't a very good public speaker. I knew nothing about the education system. I didn't know what I could add or say, and I was very nervous. And she just said to me, "Tell everyone how much you love your son." And I just feel that for all of you here who are looking to run and represent your communities, I know you do it for the love of your children and the love of your communities. And if you have that desire in you and that dedication in you, as to all of our CC members have, you're in the right place. And I encourage you to take part in this journey. So with that said, I will go to the testimonials. If we could start those.
I had the pleasure of serving for 15 years in my council. During my 2-year tenure, it was a very big controversial at that time, a lot of school closures, and I got a chance to see some of the changes that we were trying to advocate for on our CEC. So we had approached our local elected officials, and particularly our Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez at the time, for a magnet grant. And we were able to secure a multi-million-dollar 5-year grant that impacted schools directly with arts, technology, And to this day, those programs still stand. Our school in District 4, which I became very close with, was on the list for potential closure. And then I managed to organize parents and just like sit at the table with different key stakeholders and plan through what we were going to do strategically. And we were all just motivated to ensure that we had better resources and services for the children in the school building. At the time, back then, they didn't have as much supports and services within the district on special education. And I was able to do monthly IEP meetings with families, giving them a breakdown of what is an IEP, the misconceptions of special educations, and supporting families in learning about how to really advocate for their child and with their IEPs.
So I didn't get the privilege of serving on the CEC. I did get the privilege of serving on the panel for a couple of years. I've always had the greatest regard for the CEC. Always the greatest regard for the parents who serve on the CEC. I wanted to be a servant. I wanted to do it selflessly. I wanted to be the voice of others, things that they taught me, you know, in particular during my time of need, during my time of not knowing how to advocate for my son.
Seeing parents empowered around supporting their child's experience and their educational experience weighed on me profoundly. Like, it was a great experience to see that, and them then taking on the role of being an IEP parent advocate as well. I'm so privileged that life has brought me to a life of service here at the department, where I get to work with members of the CEC and get to hear their concerns and work with them on making a better education system for everyone. I ran for a CEC because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to become a parent leader because I wanted to help. I was a very active parent in my children's districts. Before I thought about joining the CEC, I was on my PAPTA, my SOT, and Title I rep. I had a wonderful parent coordinator who told me that there was going to be a community education council election, and that they had just started. And so she suggested that I would be a really good fit for it. I ran and I served. I wanted to make a difference. And I realized that it was a place where, as a parent, that I could have a voice in what happened in my local public schools. So I was very intrigued when I saw the advertisement of the CEC elections. Folks were encouraging me to apply, and that's what I did. At the time, I wanted to expand on my service to the families and the communities within my district. I remember many, many years ago when my son was diagnosed with autism, the impact that that had on me in so many ways. It really changes you in a very profound way. And one of the many gifts that my son has given me is the message of it's so important to serve others.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here this evening. My name is Rebecca Rosado, and I am the Senior Director of the governance team here at the Office of Family and Community Empowerment here in New York City Public Schools. And I'm going to be discussing with you sort of like the very basics of what CECs actually do. What do citywide and community education councils actually do with their time, and how they're so important to our overall system. Next slide, please. So initially, this is the structure of parent leadership within New York City Public Schools. As you can see, there are 3 tiers of leadership in which we encourage all of our families to be engaged in, whether that is going to meetings or actually serving on these bodies. And each of these levels of support correspond to the levels of hierarchy within New York City Public Schools. So we have at our most foundational, which is the basis of all of our work, is our schools. And we have our parent associations or parent teacher associations, our school leadership teams, and our Title I parent advisory councils or PACs. And they are supported by parent coordinators at a school level. On a district and a borough level, we have the district presidents' councils, the district Title I PACs, the borough high school presidents' councils, the district leadership teams, and the community education councils for districts 1 through 32. And these bodies are supported by the family leadership coordinators that are working in conjunction with superintendents. And on a citywide level, we have many bodies of parent leadership, including the Chancellor's Parent Advisory Council, the ECC, which is the Education Council Consortium, and then we have the Panel for Education Policy, and then we have our 4 citywide councils, which are the High School Council, the Council for Special Education, the Council for English Language Learners, or ELS, and the Council for District 75. And these structures are supported by the Office of Family and Community Empowerment. Next slide, please. So I'm going to discuss first the composition of community education councils first. So these are for districts 1 through 32. And as my colleague Eloise mentioned earlier, these generally represent students in schools, pre-K through 8 in New York City public school buildings. And the composition generally for each of these councils is 2 non-voting high school seniors per council as appointed by the superintendent. And those high school seniors generally live in the council that they are representing. And then there are 12 voting members per council, 10 of which are elected through this process that we are now enacting as part of this campaign to elect parent leaders to our CECs. And of those 10 parent leaders elected through this process, 1 seat is reserved for the parent or caregiver of a student in an English language learner seat. 1 is reserved for the parent of a student who has an individualized education program or an IEP seat. And 1 is reserved for the parent or caregiver of a student in a D75 program. And then the remaining 2 members of the voting members of the council are appointed by the borough president. Next slide, please. And then this is the composition for the 4 citywide councils. So the citywide council for high schools, or CCHS, has 13 voting members, of which 10 are elected through this electoral process. 1 is appointed by the public advocate, and 2 are appointees or liaisons from the other citywide councils. There's 1 appointee from CCEL, or the Council for English Language Learners, and 1 appointee who is a liaison from the Council for Special Education. And then the other 3 councils have 11 voting members, 9 that are elected through this electoral process, and 2 that are appointed by the public advocate's office. And each one of these councils have a non-voting high school senior as part of the council as well. Next slide. So what are the powers and the responsibilities of community education councils? So they generally host meetings that are monthly calendar meetings where the superintendent gives a monthly report, and there is opportunity for public comment by members of the public who attend because they are subject to the open meetings law. There are public events and meetings like business or committee meetings and different hearings. There's the town hall with the chancellor, where each council hosts a town hall with the chancellor once per their 2-year term. And then there are joint public hearings with the DOE, or New York City Public Schools, on school space utilization. The councils also advise on education policy. They issue an annual report. They host public meetings, like I mentioned earlier. They comment on education policies, particularly things that are coming from superintendent's office, from our different schools, and also from the panel for education policy. and they make recommendations on how to improve education for their respective populations. Next slide. Other things that the councils do, they review and assess educational programs that the district wants to implement, and the council is really there to give their feedback based on what they're hearing from their own constituents at their schools and families. Excuse me. They advise the chancellor and the panel for education policy. The councils also submit a capital plan recommendation to the chancellor for priorities within their district, and they approve zoning lines. Other responsibilities include evaluating the superintendent on a yearly basis, also approving the selection of parent coordinators as recommended by the schools that wish to hire them, and also liaise to school leadership teams within their districts. So school leadership teams host a very important function within their school communities, and education councils assign representatives to liaise with their schools, and the education councils are free to assist or attend school leadership team meetings to hear exactly what's happening on a school level, on a ground level. Next slide. So a commitment for families that wish to be a part of community and citywide education councils will vary from council to council, but council members are indeed elected officials, and they take an oath of office before beginning their term. And so some of the expectations to understand in undertaking this commitment is attendance at regular council meetings to discuss the issues that we have discussed previously with your fellow council members, a minimum of 1 to 2 meetings monthly. Additional meetings are often scheduled as well as a means to follow up or to plan. Also, communicating regularly with parents about important developments and opportunities for parents and students is a key role of council members within their citywide or community education councils, because the expectation is that you are getting information from your families, you're using that information to make informed decisions on behalf of the district, and you're also communicating back with families to continue to have that feedback cycle. And you're engaging with your school community by hosting and attending regular events that offer an opportunity for parents and caregivers to raise and discuss their concerns and potential improvements and solutions to some of those concerns as well. Next slide. And so a time commitment during your 24-month term or 2-year term will be attending a minimum of 1 to 2 monthly meetings, about 2 to 4 hours per week at minimum. And additional meetings may be scheduled as the needs of the council become evident. Also, there's email correspondence a few times per week for each of the council members to chime in when you're creating agendas or you're planning meetings or you're discussing certain issues that have arisen from different meetings. And events, at least 3 per year, where they are either created by the council or you're invited to different events that are created by different school community stakeholders, like your schools and your district. Next slide. And I'm going to pass it on to Lynn.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good evening, everyone. So now we're going to talk about eligibility. And eligibility is student-driven. A parent with all children, and this is the most important part. Eligibility is determined based on your children linked to your NYCSA account. So you need to, one, make sure that you have access to your NYCSA account. So password, login, all of that information. And when you go on to apply, it'll tell you, based on where your children are, what seats you can apply for. So I'll give you 2 examples. Naya's daughter is a 4th grader with an IEP, also known as Individual Education Program, in a District 24 school. Naya also has a son who is a 9th grader in a Bronx high school. So Naya When she goes into her NYXA account, both her children are linked to her NYXA account, to mom's NYXA account. Naya will be able to see her 4th grade daughter who has the IEP, which means that Naya can apply to run for a seat on CCSE, Citywide Council for Special Education. She can also apply for a seat on CEC 24 because Naya's daughter is a 4th grader in District 24 and she has an IEP. And then Naya can also apply for a seat on CCHS because her son is a high schooler in the Bronx. The second example is Pablo. Pablo has a son in 7th grade in District 14, in a middle school in District 14. He is also an English language learner. So when Pablo logs into his NYXA account, he has his son already linked. He will have the option to submit, to apply for a seat on CEC, a seat in CEC 14, to have a seat there in the district, or he can as well apply for a seat on CCSE. So because his son is an English language learner. So you must make sure that your children are linked onto your NYXA account. And once they're linked, the account itself, as you're applying, it will tell you your eligibility and what you are able to apply for. Next slide, please. Candidate eligibility. So here, very quickly, it just breaks down each of the councils. So CEC is the Community Education Council. It serves students from grades pre-K to 8. Who's eligible? A parent is eligible to run for a district from districts 1 to 32 where their child is currently attending. For this, it says IEP parent. For this reserve seat, the IEP can be the current or at the time of so at the time where your child's at in terms of the IEP. So if the child has an IEP, you can run for a CEC seat in that district and you can be the IEP rep. L parent, for this reserve seat, the L status can be current or at the time in the past. Apologies. Then there is the D75 parent on a district CEC. Again, pre-K to 12th grade. Who's eligible? A parent of a student in a D75 school located in the geographical district of the CEC. Then we move on to CCHS. That is the Citywide Council for High School. That's grades 9 through 12. A parent that is eligible to run for 1 or 2 seats in the borough where their children's school is located. That is who's eligible. And then it goes on and it explains the IEP parent, the L parent. There's no reserve for IEP, no reserve for L. CCSE, Citywide Council for Special Education, 3K to 12th grade, and so forth, right? So we have CCECs, which is also the Citywide Council for English Language Learners, again, K through 12. And these particular seats, they're citywide and they cover that specific area. So CCSE is specific to children who have special education services. CCSE is for students who have English as a second language. The CCD75 is for parents that have children in the D75 setting, and for the D75 community, it's pre-K through 12. Next slide, please. So this small little clip just talks about how to apply. And as I previously mentioned, for the Citywide Council on Education election, this process is done through your NYXA accounts. So you need to make sure the Community Citywide Education Council election is done through the NYXA account, and we need to make sure that everyone has access to their NYXA account. So access to, making sure your login is updated. You will be able to apply through your NYXA account. Here, as you see on the screen, this is someone who is it shows you the council eligibility. So here it shows you, it breaks down based on your children's eligibility or where they're at, what options you have, and you can rank the choices that you have. So having a NYCSA is super important. Making sure that your login is updated is super important. You go in and you apply, you submit your application. If you have multiple options, so if you have multiple options to serve, so Naya, for example, who is on CEC 24, but her daughter has an IEP, she has 2 seats plus her son who's in high school. Those are 3 different options. When you submit your application, you get to rank them, right? You rank them in your order of preference, of priority. So if you get enough votes for your first priority, that's the seat that you will serve in, but you rank them 1 to whatever number you have. And then depending on the votes, then we know where you land. In addition to, and the last thing I'll say is, not only do you apply through NYCSA, but you also vote through NYCSA. So we want to be extra clear. NYCSA is a super important tool that that all parents in New York City should have. You submit your application on NYCSA, and then you go in during the voting period and you run, and everyone has access. Everyone should have access to do both things. With that, thank you. And next slide. Jesse?
Thank you so much, Lynn. At this point in time, we're going to begin to take some questions from the Q&A. I have some questions here that I have received. So I will start to respond to them. And once again, everyone, that if you have a question, please use the Q&A feature. Put your question in there. We will get to your question. We'll get to as many questions as we can during this session, but we will keep looking through the Q&A and able to contact you if we're not able to get to your question this evening to respond. But the first question that I have here is, can you please reshare the timeline calendar? Yes, if we can go into the presentation and just pull up at the beginning where the timeline is, I could speak to it. So the application period, which started today, is from January 13th through February 16th. After the application period, we are going to have a series of candidate forums where the candidates will be given the opportunity in their respective districts and respective communities to make a case for their candidacy. And that will happen from February 26th through April 24th. And then after the conclusion of the candidate forums, the voting period begins. And that will be from April 25th through May 13th. And then, in June, the results are announced and council terms begin July 1st. Next question here. Are you able to be on the council of District 75 if you are a teacher in another district? If you are a DOE employee, you are ineligible to be on the CC. Next question here is, what is the difference between District 75 and special education? So the Citywide Council on Special Education, if your child is receiving IEP or like services and has an IEP, you're on the CCSE. Also, if you have a child in District 75, you could also be on the CCEC. The difference with the Citywide Council in District 75 is that it's exclusive to parents whose children are in District 75. Should you apply even if your child is leaving high school? You are eligible to apply. Like the eligibility requirement for the council is the eligibility at the time of application. So if you have a child and then they're in their senior year in high school, you're still eligible to apply. Are members being paid for this commitment? No, the citywide and community education councils are not paid. They do receive monthly reimbursement for things such as childcare, a monthly reimbursement every month for those types of expenses. But this is the citywide and community education council service on these respective councils are not paid. Let's see here. I'm sorry, I'm going through. I just logged into my Nix account and see my name is misspelled. How can I get? So if there are any questions, if you are, pardon me, if you are on Nixa and you have any questions with respect to your Nixa account, our recommendation is to contact your school's parent coordinator so that you can receive assistance if there's anything incorrect or if there's any question that you have with respect to your Nixa account. Definitely contact your school's um, parent coordinator. Will there be workshops and information sessions across the city? Yes, there have been. We have done presentations across the city in various venues. We've done at borough service cabinets across the borough president's offices. We have done presentations as well for our parent coordinators and our family leadership coordinators. Also, would recommend all that one of the ways to best learn about a council is just go to your local council and and observe and see the council in action. Speak to council members who are currently serving right now, and that you really get a sense as to what the commitment and service is, to be on a council. Next question here. Oh, before I take the next question, I also want to be cognizant of our interpretation room. So Lynn, Bibi, I'm going to answer like a couple more questions, but then I'm going to go to both of you to see if there are any questions that we're receiving from our interpretation rooms. But next question here, are parents from pre-K programs in independent centers eligible to vote? They are not eligible to run, yes, independent centers from my understanding, and Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, are not eligible to run, that I know, and not eligible to vote. But if it's a pre-K center that is run by the department under the jurisdiction of the superintendent, parents are able to run and vote. Let's see. Are there, pardon me, are there any spots available this year for borough president appointee positions? Yes. And the borough presidents have two positions, two appointed positions on each of the 32 district CCs. So currently right now, there are some vacancies on borough presidents on CCs that would be appointed by the borough president. So we can definitely, if you have any questions on those, you can definitely reach out to us at face@schools.nyc.gov. Be happy to, answer your questions to your specific district. And also, as we go through the election, concurrent to the election, each borough president's office is also making decisions on their future appointments for the next term. So the term is for 2 years. That is correct. Starting July 1st would be the 2-year term that would go to June 30th in 2027. So this term for this upcoming election would be from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2027. And is there a website that summarizes each of the bodies that appeared on the leadership structure slide? Yes, like our website, schools.nyc.gov, you will see information on the CCs, on the panel for educational policy, on SLTs. So there is information on schools.nyc.gov. Also, there's another website, PTA Link, also has information on those respective parent leadership structures as well. And are all of those bodies open to parents? Yes. All of those leadership structures that we shared prior to in the previous slide are parental leadership structures that are open to parents. And I'm going to pause and ask Bibi and ask Lynn if there are any questions in our interpretation lines.
Yeah, sure, Jesse. Interpreters, if you can assist us, please, and ask our attendees in the rooms if there are any questions. Max, do you have questions in the Mandarin?
No questions on the Mandarin line.
Thank you. Juan, Spanish room, please.
The Spanish interpreter already made an announcement. I'm waiting for anybody to say something.
Thanks. Bengali room?
There is no question on the Bengali room.
Thanks, Otin.
No question.
Paul?
No question on the Spanish line either.
Thank you. Jesse, you may proceed.
Thank you, Bibi. And I also like to make a point as well with respect to interpretation. So all families are encouraged to apply for Citywide and Community Education Council. It is not contingent upon, like, if your first language is not English, that does not disqualify you from being on the CEC. We encourage all families to be on the CEC. If your first language is not English, interpretation will be provided to you so that you can serve on the Citywide and Community Education Councils. Currently, we have one of our presidents whose first language is not English, who is serving as president of our council. So I just want to say very loudly that we encourage, all participation on the council, and we encourage that, anyone who is receiving or is in need of interpretation services, they are welcome to serve on the council and will be provided interpretation services during their tenure if elected. So let me continue with the questions. Do any of them require membership on a lower tier before being able to apply to a higher tier? For example, is there a prerequisite to being on the CCHS? No, there is no prerequisite. There is a huge diversity of experiences on our CCs currently. There are individuals who are on our CC who have, a wealth of experience in many of our parental structures. They served on PAs and PTAs, they served on SLTs, and then there are other members who have served on none of those bodies and were very active as community activists in their respective communities. So there isn't a prerequisite or that you have to, in a sense, serve on a respective council before serving on another.
Jesse, can I read a question to you?
Absolutely.
The question that I'm seeing come in multiple times. It's specific to parents who are on parent associations or parent teacher associations. Do they have to step down to run for a CEC, or do they have to step down to run for a CEC seat?
They do not have to step down to run on CC for CCC. You can serve on multiple bodies. We have individuals who are on the President's Council who are also CC members as well.
Thanks, Jesse.
And I am just going through additional questions here. There's a question here, but I want to clarify because I think there might be a confusion with respect to this question. But the question is, so if we're not a parent of an IEP student, D75 student, English language learner, there is no opportunity for us to run. No, that is not the case. So there are opportunities that are specific to individuals who have a child who is in District 75, that's the Citywide Council for District 75, a child with an IEP, that's the Citywide Council for Special Education, or a child who's an English language learner, which is the Citywide Council for English language learners. However, if you have, but those are very specific citywide councils that represent students in those respective areas. But if you have a child, if the CC is open to you, if you have a child in the respective district enrolled in a school in that district. So parents, wherever you have your child enrolled in school, pre-K through 8, and they're enrolled in a particular school in a particular district, you're eligible to serve on that CC. So yes, so those particular areas that were mentioned in that question were specific to certain citywide councils. That didn't mean those were the only opportunities. I hope I clarified that. And So there's a question here. Can a person who has a seat on the CC run for a seat on the on the CCEC? Yes, as long as they continue to be eligible. On the CC, I'm sorry. So can a person who's currently on the CC run for the CC? Yes. So as long as they are currently eligible. So if I am, just to give an example, on CEC 5, and in, starting the new term, I'm still going to, like, I still am eligible to serve, I still have children in the system, then, I am eligible to continue to run. I just have to, I would have to, like, once you're elected every 2 years, as long as you're still eligible, you have to run again. You would run again for your position. And then there was a question, is there a separate election for the CCHS? No, all of the elections for all of the councils that we've talked about, the 32 district councils and the 4 citywide councils, all part of the CCEC election for 2025. Let's see here. I know we're getting close to time, and I also want to get as many questions as possible. So, are parents eligible to run in their current district if their child may attend a school in another district in the fall? So as I said before, you are the eligibility is dictated by the time of application. So you are eligible to run if your child's going to attend another district in the fall, but if they're attending a particular district right now, you're still eligible to run for that respective council, because it is eligibility is dictated at the time of applying. So where your child is currently right now, going to school right now, those are and in that respective district or program, you're eligible because it's at the time of application. I did want to take a moment. I do see that our Deputy Chancellor, Dr. Cristina Melendez, is here, and I do want to give our Deputy Chancellor an opportunity to speak to all. So without any further ado, Dr. Melendez, Deputy Chancellor Melendez, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Jesse. And thank you, team. I never know if people are hearing me. I have this like bad habit of like, can you hear me? But the team says yes. Thank you so much for over 600 participants throughout this this meeting, just eager to find out about the CEC elections and what it means and how we can make sure that your voice as parents and families and community members is representative and in partnership with all of us here at New York City Public Schools. That is one of the most important relationships that we have, and we want to make sure that we continue to preserve it. And that requires that you come and apply. I know there's a lot of technical questions that Jesse is fielding. Thank you so much, team, for fielding all of the questions. All I'm going to say is that this math is very simple. If you have a child in our New York City public schools and or programs endorsed or supported or paid for by New York City public schools, there is a very good chance that you are eligible to run for not just one seat, but maybe multiple seats, depending on your child's designations. And so what we really want is to make sure that all of you feel open, comfortable, and able and willing to participate, because your voice is so important. Our campaign slogan, one of many, is "Your voice matters." And it's the future of our students and all of their hopes and dreams. And it's with your partnership that we can get it done. And so this is an opportunity, a point of entry to do that work with all of us. And we would be more than excited to have your application and make sure that you are part of this conversation at your districts or in a citywide council or anything in between. And so thank you all for showing up Thank you for persisting. Thank you for the questions. Know that you can always reach out to us if we are not able to answer these questions. Know that we will get back to you if you have questions. But throughout this process, and today is the first day of our application being open, but please not only apply now, apply early, but share it with your partners, your friends, your community members who couldn't be here today, because it's really, really important that you are in partnership with us. So we're excited. Thank you for coming. Thank you, team, for putting this together. And there's more to come. But Jesse, I'm going to pass it back over to you to field more questions and or close us out here. But I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of New York City Public Schools.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chancellor. If we can put up this slide, the last slide we had, because there's important information with regards to some next steps and how people can apply. So, I mean, first and foremost, just once again, thank you so much. As the Deputy Chancellor said, we have over 600 attendees for today's webinar. That's just outstanding, and we are definitely encouraged by that, and we look forward to all of you applying to councils and being part of the election process. So as our Deputy Chancellor said, ways to support, outreach, and distribute the election materials in your area. We can host election information sessions as well, help your school coordinate voting events, organize canvassing teams, post on social media, and run and vote. And we have this particular image here where we're giving everyone an opportunity to scan as well as far as additional information on next steps with the campaign and how you can steps to get more information, vote, and to apply. But before we do that, I know we had about a few more minutes left, as I wanted to leave this slide up because it's very, give people an opportunity to scan the code. But Lynn, do we have any final, maybe we can take maybe one or two more questions before we close out?
Sure. There's a question. Are meetings on the same, let me see, it says here, are the meetings on the same day every month?
Usually, yes. The CCs will establish a schedule for the 10-month academic. Well, it's 12-month. CCs meet during the summer as well. So for the year, they set their meeting dates. It's usually on the same, has the cadence of the same day per month, but sometimes it could vary. It really depends on the council, and the council will set their schedule at the beginning of the term.
Perfect, Jess. I think that's, or if you want one more question, BB
Sure,
can
we could take one more.
go for it, BB.
Yeah, we have a question here, Jesse, but I guess I'll ask two in one. Are the council meetings in person? That's the first. And then what is the educational background needed to apply? And is it?
So the council meetings are in person, and there is no educational requirement. Like there is no like particular requirement that one needs to have to be a member of the CEC. The requirement is having a child within our school system.
And how can someone have or sort of create their NICSA account?
So definitely connect with your parent coordinator. So if you are in need of a NICSA account, need activation on a NICSA account, have any questions on a NICSA account, please go to your school's parent coordinator and they will assist you in establishing that. So thank you, BB. So if there are no additional questions in the Q&A, I just wanted to take this moment on behalf of all of us here at FACE to thank you once again for your attendance at this webinar. There was a question, I believe, as well that we didn't answer publicly, but I wanted to leave it for the end because it was a question about the presentation. Will the presentation be made available? Yes, we will make this presentation available for those who attended, so that you can bring those to your respective school community and share that information with your respective school communities. So with that said, I wanted to once again thank everybody for your attendance at tonight's webinar. Really encourage you to run for a council seat. As we said, the application opened up today. Will go through February 16th. You know, you attended today's webinar and I know that you're interested in running. So please, we encourage you to take the next step and go on your next account and run for a council seat. So definitely really appreciate everyone's attendance this evening. Also want to thank our interpreters for their service as always, you know, at tonight's meeting. Thank everyone at FACE and thank our Deputy Chancellor for her attendance at this meeting and her leadership, and wish everyone a good evening.